Good afternoon folks, 21st Century Caveman here. Hope everybody's safe, hope everybody's well, and welcome to another video. So today then I'm going to share with you another piece of equipment which I've purchased from Lidl. It's part of their Parkside range, and it's something which I'll be using when I do basic maintenance on my two electric scooters, my bicycle, my mountain bike, and also my quad bike. I'll just spin the camera around. So as we can see then, this is a 2-in-1 car creeper and stool. Now this only cost 20 quid, £19.99 or something, absolute peanuts. So if it's any good, it will of course be a bargain. So 2-in-1 car creeper and stool, that's obviously the car creeper, that's obviously the stool, and as we can see this thing folds up. You've got some hinges there, look, and you know, you can use it in whichever format you prefer. So these are the weight limits, look, 150 kilos, and as a creeper, when you're lying down flat, or as a stool, 120 kilos, so that's about 18 stone, something like that. Now, as I've mentioned, I'm going to be using this when I'm doing general maintenance on my two electric scooters. So I have an eMove Cruiser S, and I also have an Apollo Phantom version 3, and also a TGB Blade 1000cc quad bike. So when I'm doing, you know, some stuff on those, I'll be using these, probably just the seat actually, just to scurry around and just to make things a little bit easier to get down there, clean wheels, you know, have a look at connections, that sort of thing. And yeah, anyway, look, I'm just gaffing now, so I'm just going to spin the camera around and then show you what we got. All right. So obviously some assembly is required. So this then comes in 3 pieces and a separate bag with the rollers. And you've got some nuts and bolts, look, and a little tool there just to tighten things up. You've got a little spanner and a little Allen key as well. So this looks as if it's pretty much the configuration we need it in anyway. So if we turn those around then. First thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to tighten these screws up. Well, I'm assuming of course I need tightening up. So these casters then need to go in these holes, but you need to put these in first. Okay, so that needs to come up from the bottom so you can screw it in. just this one here, the last one. So in terms of the middle section then, then you've got this little locking pin here, look. Okay, so again, triangular bit goes towards the head, the Parkside bit, so spin that round. Now you can see we've got some holes here, look, on both sides, so we need to line those up. Let's put this down for a minute. So what we need to do with this then, line up these holes and put the long bolt through there. And then put this nut on the end, and the bit that tapers needs to go on the outside. In fact, that's buggered already, look. If we can do it that way instead. Let's see if we can do it this way. So again, we've got some more holes, and we just need to repeat what we've already done. Now on this side, the bolt will go straight through. Just need to line the holes up. Now it's a slightly different situation on the other side, insofar as you have this locking mechanism here, look. However, you've still got those holes there. In fact, let's just have a look. You've got two holes here, look. This is for the locking pin, so you need to line up these two holes here, and the other hole, which is slightly larger, is the one which accommodates the locking pin. There we go. So that needs to go in there. Now I've got one of these left over. Why is that? I'm just wondering whether there's a fault on this, and I need to drill out the other side of this. Let me show you. So we can see that the bolt goes through both of these tubes here, look, and I can secure this bolt with this nut here. However, over here, that bolt won't go all the way through, and the reason is because there's no hole there, look. So I'm thinking that that bolt ought to be secured there. So I think what I'm going to have to do is to drill out that hole just there. I'm just going to have a look at the instructions just to see if it says anything different. Bear with me. So if we have a look at this diagram here, look, so there's the locking pin, and we can see that the bolt, the bolt with the threads on the end, should be secured using that nut. So basically, as I suggested earlier, that hasn't been drilled out, so I'm going to need to drill that out. Right, boys and girls, so we're back again, and that hole has now been sorted. So the only thing that remains is to put this back together again. Now I'm going to start on this side first. I'm going to pull this pin out, look, and put it in the larger hole like that, just to hold it into place. And then I'm going to turn it round to the side so I can feed one of these bolts through here. Start to tighten up then. Incidentally, these nuts and bolts, the heads on these are 14mm. The other thing to mention is the fact that when you're tightening this up, they will only screw so far. So when you can feel the resistance and you can't screw it any further, you will notice that you have a little bit of thread sticking out, and that is as far as you can go. So that one's done. Now we move on to this side. So this now then is the side with the pin. Again, we're just lining up those holes. Now we've got to be careful on a rough surface like this OSB that we don't rip this plastic stuff here, look, okay. In fact, what I'm going to do, look, I don't want to take a chance with this. Let's just spin it round for a moment. Nip that up, and that, ladies and gentlemen, should be it. So once it's assembled, you will have this. So as we can see, that will scoot nicely along the surface. Now it won't actually fold whilst you've got this locking pin here, look. So what I mean, this bit will, but you don't want that to, you know, that in itself isn't going to do anything. This is the key to the whole thing. So if you give that a pull, and then you can fold it like that. And you'll also notice that when you fold it in this configuration, this locking pin will automatically lock into this groove just here. There we go, can you see it, look? Now that does feel okay. Now I weigh approximately 18 stone, so this should be heavy duty enough to deal with my weight. I mean, obviously we won't know for certain, will we, until we start using it in earnest. But I think this should be a valuable addition to the workshop. It's got a nice little bit of padding here, look, without being too over the top. I mean, look, we mustn't forget this costs 20 quid, so you know, we can't expect a top class precision piece of equipment, can we? Nevertheless, it's got a 3-year guarantee, and if it turns out to be a piece of garbage, then guess what, it can go back, can't it? But certainly, as things stand at the moment, that looks alright, looks reasonably decent.